his team handles architectural design, mechanical design, structural design. Matt's company handles the civil design. That's everything outside the building, parking, sidewalks, driveways, that piece of it. Okay, I have not been hired past June 5th of this year, whatever it is, the referendum, okay? I have not been hired past that. I don't, have you? You're not hired either, right? Technically,
We're
no.
hired to get a little bit more work.
All the proposals that have been put forward are to go to referendum only. That is the only commitments that have been made, okay? So if the village board, in their opinion, wanted to seek new design or new construction management services at the end of the referendum, that is well within their rights and they have every opportunity to do that.
Well, I think we have to put the architecture on the bid for three firms, right?
Nope. Professional services,
so-
you got it.
What's that?
To
It's a
simplify this,
professional
did more than
services.
one firm originally bid on this design?
Yes. I know, I originally, to be honest with you, I put in a proposal for the feasibility study 3 years ago, and we didn't get it. There were 7 people, there were 3 interviewed, and we didn't get it. H2M got it. Okay? So H2M did the process, and we went to referendum, and Dennis suggested to the village board that the village retain Hubert Brewer because we've done this before, as has he. But he thought our budget experience and our referendum experience would be valuable to the process.
So you were selected by the board, nobody did a bid process where there were competing RFPs submitted?
There was. They had 5, they're called requests for proposals, they received 5. Okay, they received 5, I know they interviewed 3 because I stood in the hallway and waited. Yes,
The interview is an interview, I'm talking about what was the formal bid process?
there was an RFP that it was issued, and
That should be public. So where
it was public. It was public.
Okay, where would you find that?
You go back to, what is it, 2019? What was it, the spring? You drove, Matt. I would look, spring of 2019, it's out there.
Is it out there?
2018?
You want to know where out there?
Sure, we can certainly get that to you, absolutely.
Presentation of facilities committee.
They're going to take a FOIL request?
The presentation of the facilities committee was a November meeting when the facilities.
What year?
18
18.
was when the facilities.
But yes, we can get that for you. No, you don't, that's fine. Yes.
I have some questions from people who couldn't be here tonight. Many of them were answered, but I just wanted to ask with you. Was there consideration to build one building to house all the departments rather than 2 buildings, 1 renovation, and then a new firehouse, considering that there might be some efficiency gains, meeting spaces and things like that?
If everything was combined into one, there would be some efficiencies potentially with joint meeting spaces, let's call it everyone, right? The problem is, but you would never overcome the cost of the additional square footage being new construction at $500 a foot versus renovation of existing space at, I forget what we used, $300 a foot. So that's what the renovate, when in doubt, if you have a structure and you can renovate and repair, it's always the way to go.
There was another problem. We did look at several sites. You need a much larger site to house it, and in doing so, there were few available, and the ones that were maybe available, or at least for sale, would have added several $1 million to the project of buying a much larger site.
Go ahead.
Next is, what is the backup plan if this gets voted down? Because as we've all expressed, this is well needed. The current situation of the building doesn't even meet code standards. So does this go on table for another 20 years? Or is there a plan to, if this gets voted down in June, go back to the drawing board quickly and try to come up with a new strategy?
I can't speak for the village board, but if the project referendum was not to pass, I think there would be an effort made to try and figure out what the trigger was and try and resolve it as quickly as you could. But I don't think if the perception is if we vote this down, they'll come back with 2,000 square feet less in 4 months. that's probably not a real expectation. So this isn't a process of, we're gonna try, and if we fail, we'll come back with less in the future and hope that passes. That's not a productive process. It's certainly not a process I want to be involved in. So I can't emphasize enough. I damn near went to war with the fire chief over this. And if you think he just laid down and said, I'm good with less space, you're crazy. Okay? And I'm not nothing against him. I called the mayor 3 nights ago and said, I have a plan. I think it'll work. About 8:45. He was coming home from his birthday dinner, I think. Anyway, so we're trying. I cut it down as far as I could and still meet, like this gentleman says, let's not, cut off our head to spite our nose because we didn't look far enough in the future. There is no future in this plan really to speak of. There's going to have to be an evolution, less of something else to make room for something we need, right? But right now, we think we are pretty much down and dirty. I took, what did I take? I took 2,000 out of 16,000 per square footage, and I took 12% of the budget out, which was the process we needed to go through. And that's why we said, sounds shocking. I have sat in rooms like this, and I've had the community say, don't take any square footage out. We want to have room to grow. We'll pay for it. We're good. That wasn't the message 3 weeks ago, right? We heard it, that's what we did.
And many of us appreciate the fact that you cut it out already, because you did say last time that you.
I said, please, give me a chance, would you give me 3 weeks to try and do what I told you I was gonna do?
2,000 square feet.
We're trying, and we're gonna continue to try, but it's a process.
What's the purpose of the mezzanine?
So the mezzanine, as Dennis was explaining, we have this,
I answered that for Sue already.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, that was why I asked
Well,
that.
maybe
Okay.
those of us in the room.
That- that's okay.
Just-
I was reading the same thing.
go ahead, I
Sorry.
didn't understand, I'm fine, go ahead.
No.
I'm sorry, do you have other questions?
We're gonna explain.
Oh, he said he answered it for Sue already, so I didn't.
Just so people in the room.
Okay, so the mezzanine, the apparatus bay in general, the large box, right? It has a construction height of about 21 feet to accommodate the 14-foot overhead doors, the structural capacity that's needed above the top of it to keep the whole thing together. So along the apparatus bay, we have these what we call support areas. Turnout gear rooms, just basic, like tool rooms, if you will, just simple rooms. They only need to be 9 foot tall. So I have all this space above it that I can access easily for storage and training that's very cheap to develop because all I'm building is a set of stairs and a concrete slab over instead of an acoustical ceiling. Otherwise, all that space up there is just going to be open.
So it's basically like just taking advantage of dead space.
It's taking advantage of dead space. That's exactly what we're doing. We're taking advantage of dead space. And the training, while it sounds crazy, nobody should be sitting here tonight thinking we're trying to develop a $8.75 million station to develop interior training. It's not. But the training capacity that this station will allow the department to have is huge. If you are fortunate enough to have it. And one of the things, hopefully, between the three of us, remember, we will bring with us next time some photos of what that training space looks like, so you can see what we're talking about.
I got one more from somebody. What is going to be the vote procedure for the June referendum vote? It looks like it's going to be at the firehouse, and that is not a polling place officially. And is there going to be involvement from the board of elections to check voter registrations, check residency, who's going to be counting ballots, that kind of thing?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, when we have our village elections, where are they held? Here. Okay, so we will probably, does it make sense, will we have the vote here?
The forms are here, but then the last form of the vote is in the firehouse.
Okay, I think that, I don't have a problem, we want to have it here, great.
That was one of the questions, just because it.
I don't know, and I'll be honest, I don't know the answer to that. Can I get back to that? I'll get back to all of those next time, in the next meeting, I'll have definitive answers for you. I gotta talk with, I'm sorry, what's the attorney's name? Let me talk with Letty though, because I don't.
They told us that this space wasn't available for that.
Well, so, And I didn't know the station wasn't an actual polling place, so let me get with everybody and we will have a defined answer for you next time. Okay?
Quick question.
Answer that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we've talked a lot about the fire department and the apparatuses and mezzanine, and I can go on and on and on. Not trying to be mean by saying that. We haven't talked about the police department at all.
right.
I just have a couple of questions. I mean, is this gonna be like, other police departments? I know we have an officer in the, like, don't a lot of them, don't a lot of them, you drive, like, you arrest somebody, don't you drive them in? So you don't have to, like, take them out of the car outside?
I mean, different departments,
Like, what do they do at Schenectady?
they have Sally Port that they can drive in.
They drive, is it gonna be like that, where they drive them in the building and shut the door?
The Sally Port is probably one of the biggest program things we're talking about right now with them. It's one of the unknowns. I really want, and Dennis is rolling his head, no, I know. I really want to try and take a portion of that fire bay if I can, because it's like a slab.
That's what I was saying.
Can I use that for a Sally Port? We have to figure out, we run into problems with access off of Mohawk, and I know it was done that way in 1914 or whenever that thing was built. If you do any studying of the, and I have not done a lot of it, but the police process and when they are detaining somebody, there are all these studies that will tell you the rate of incidence of injury to the officer when they're able to take a bad person and you pull into a contained space and the overhead door goes down and he looks around and he goes, I'm not going anywhere, is way different than taking him out of the car behind the stewards and walking him across the road on the sidewalk. And I hate to say it, I'm not judging anybody who they might be intoxicated or on drugs or whatever it might be. You're trying to manage this individual carefully and get them to a safe spot. And so if we can provide that, if it's not that, if it's an area that's outside of the department but directly adjacent to a door that's prepared to do that, that would be the next best thing where we could pull into at least a locked fenced area. So he says, okay, I'm not getting out and I'm only a couple steps to get into the, what do you call it, the processing area or whatever it is. Those are all parts of that program that we need to try and improve for the police space of it. Dennis can talk all night long about the protocol that is required for police. He's done a lot of it. But yes, those are the things that we want to.
Because, I mean, if we're giving that up, that's a big thing for me, is we should be able to, but on the other hand, that floor, we keep saying is so deteriorated, then how are we able to use that for the police, for the Sally?
I'm not sure we're going to be able to use it for the Sally, but I can tell you, this is where, if you remember, I talked about in the beginning, getting structural analysis of the building. Huge difference between a Ford Explorer and a rig with 40,000 pounds on it, right? So I don't know the answer to that yet, but we know again, for the square footage that's available, we should be able to make dramatic improvements that will be a 50-year improvement for the fire or for the police department moving forward with the space that we have available to us. One of the hardest things that made Dennis pound his head on the table is that building, if you know it, is actually 2 buildings.
Yeah,
And it has about 5 different floor elevations.
Mm-hmm.
So how he is going to make those different floor elevations work to still be handicap accessible and do the right thing is the biggest challenge of that renovation.
Isn't a lot of it grandfathered in, though?
Not if you're doing a $5 million renovation, it's not.
That's right, now you have to bring it all
That far, it's got to be brought up.
You go that far, you're bringing it
Yeah, I
up.
know, I just wasn't.
Right? So that's,
Yeah.
again, part of the process, right? So, and one of the, so, yes, we are trying to address that. We did up in Tupper Lake. If I showed you where they used to take people in Tupper Lake, you'd be like, whoa.
And I assume you're increasing the jail cell?
Yeah, absolutely. Other questions? No, I'll take one more. Thanks, Joe. That's a good idea.
I just got a final comment.
people all the time.
I think where a lot of individuals in this room might be very well mistaken of where the bottlenecks are in the process. I think it's our village administration that we need to potentially have some of our hostility towards, not necessarily the separate contractor and the design team that's been brought in and hired to design the project. So be that as it is. If you have frustrations with it, bring it to your public personnel, not to the individual that's been hired to just simply present and design a project. So that's one. Two, if for any individual that is going to personally go after an individual in a public meeting, you should be ashamed of yourself. If you don't agree with the project, put a sign in your front yard that says vote no and stay home. Just don't bring that level of personal negativity to the meeting. Good grief. Like, come on. I honestly don't know where I'm at on this project yet. I'm still on the fence. I'm really excited to see these meetings and see the design and see where it goes, because I don't know how I'm voting for it just yet. So, but that doesn't mean I come to this meeting and start personally assailing people. So, together, folks.
So, the next public forum, sorry, I'm looking for it now. Did you do the exit polls? Did you hand them out? Can you hand those out, please? The next public forum is scheduled for June 2nd at 7 p.m. here in this same location. Sorry, May 12th. Sorry, May 12th at 7 p.m. here in Jersey. Okay? And there will be a notice on the website, on the village website, May 12th, 7 o'clock here. If you have a question you would like answered after, and I will answer your question. Yeah, and I'll get to you. If you have questions, if you go on the village website, this is on it. And the email address, if you have questions, will be on the village website. And if you send the questions, will be answered. Yes, ma'am.
So you'll notice the village camera in the back of this presentation will be put on the village website. With that, yeah, there will be an exit poll once this video is done.
Sure. Anything else? Sorry, I'm yelling. If you'd like, if you want to submit it, if you just hold it, put it on the table. Thank you for coming.
Does anybody not get it?
15 minutes. Yeah, right after that, right?